Hello, and welcome to Leadership as a Philosophy, Not a Checklist, video discussion 14. And this is going to be on actually a YouTube channel called Communications Coach with Lyon. So this guy is a professor of communications, got a PhD, and he has a YouTube channel where he does evaluations of people's speaking styles. He does some instructions on how to communicate more effectively, and also has some leadership videos. So when I was watching these, they're all kind of short, and what struck me was that this is sort of another classic case of yes and. So a bunch of the things that he says are correct, but there's more to the statement. You know, it's like it'd be like saying, you know, what's I'm trying to think, you know, what's 2 times 6? Well, 1. Okay, that's part of the answer. There's a 2 in there as well, right? That's a crude example, but you know, the idea is that there's some basic stuff there, but then why? You know, I'm always the why person. So what I'm going to do basically is he's got some videos on integrity, on empathy, on not so much on vigilance, and then on a bunch of different leadership styles. So I'm going to talk about those. Not going to use clips. YouTube's been weird about whacking me for having clips of stuff. So I'll just put the title of the video there, and then we'll and then talk about it. And then at the end, I'll link his page so you can go watch all these for himself, which obviously gives him traffic and helps him out too. So, you know, no harm, no foul. Anyway, I did, you know, truth in lending. I want to say this as a disclosure all the time. I did reach out and ask to collaborate and try to do something to talk about all of his ideas. And I got back a negative answer, which is fine. That's people's prerogative. So I would love to have a discussion about this, but it's not happening. So we just get point and counterpoint, and then you can draw your own conclusions. As always, I appreciate you stopping here. There's plenty of content on YouTube, and hopefully you enjoy this, this summary. Thanks for your time. Hello, and welcome to the PowerPoint portion of this presentation. This is the 14th video discussion that we're doing, obviously. And this is going to be, as I said during the intro, on Communications Coach Lyon. I don't know if he's Canadian or not. So I want to be 100% transparent and clear. I saw one of his videos several months ago, and then kind of checked in a couple of times and reached out and asked if this gentleman would like to do a collaboration. And the answer I got was no, not interested. So anything that I say, I would absolutely say in a discussion. I thought that this was going to be an opportunity for a really excellent discussion, because here we have somebody with lots of education and a real sound understanding of the conventional leadership theory stuff. And I thought we could have had a really good discussion. Unfortunately, you know, it didn't happen, so that's okay. But I do want to just, if I say anything like that, it's not out of, I'm not trying to be spite, not trying to be negative. This guy's got way more, huge amount of subscribers and followers and all this stuff on YouTube, and he's a doctor, so, you know, all due respect to that. It's just, I just thought it was unfortunate we didn't have a chance to talk. So anyway. I'm not going to clip his videos or do anything else. If you go to his YouTube channel, which I'll link the title to it at the end, then you can watch these for yourself. They're 5 to 6 minutes long. And one of the questions I had during my question and answer session was, why don't I do 5 or 6 minute clips? Well, I think I'll be able to maybe show why. But like I said, no disrespect. So here's a summary. So concepts. So integrity goes through and talks about why integrity is important. And it's got a bunch of really good individual examples. You know, don't lie, be honest, You want to be dependable. You want to tell the truth. You want to do all that sort of stuff. So, okay, that's great, right? That's a good thing. But once again, he never talks about integrity in a leadership example. It's basically, here's how you deal with people one-on-one and the importance of integrity, which is absolutely valid, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So this is how do you call it? A classic case of yes and when it comes to leadership stuff. So then the next one he did was on empathy. And again, this one I thought was interesting because it was, well, how do you put yourself in somebody else's shoes? And he gave a bunch of examples on how to do that as a skill exercise. And I just thought it was pretty strange because it goes back to you're trying to learn how to put yourself in somebody else's shoes so you can manipulate them. I don't know. I'm not sure. It just felt very strange. It's, you need to have empathy because then people will follow you, type thing. And it had a really strange feeling to it because it wasn't you need to be able to understand where the other person's coming from but still be yourself. That's what I see as empathy. I need to be able to say, hey, look, I got to deliver some really bad news. I know this is going to feel terrible. I know what's going on with your family. I know all this sort of stuff, but I got to deliver this to you. So yes, you have to have empathy and you have to be able to feel that. But then what's the importance of empathy in a leadership situation? And he even asked a question in that video where he said, well, is there such a thing as too much empathy? Well, he didn't really answer the question. So it was kind of frustrating, but it's sort of like, this is, well, hey, we need to have integrity. Okay, we need to have empathy. Okay. So I thought that was different. The next one was he did a video on compassion because I was looking around, going through his stuff, trying to find the 4 essential characteristics, the 4 pillars of your character that you should have. And what he really described in the video was you need to think of people before yourself. You need to, care for others instead of yourself. You need to, so what it really ended up being was he was describing humility. And all of his examples were humility, not compassion. Because compassion, you can definitely have too much compassion. But is it compassion when somebody's having a rough day and you send them home? Or is that humility? I don't know. I mean, like I said, this would have been a great one to talk about. Because I think that the humility is action, right? What was that example that I saw where we talked about it? Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Beautiful. So yeah, so there we go. So because I don't think that compassion is absolutely a good leadership trait. Humility and empathy are, absolutely, and integrity and paying attention, right? Those are the things that you need. Because if somebody's having a rough day, it's empathy that is going to make you say, geez, I wouldn't be able to handle this, or is this the right thing? Because here's what happens. If you're just compassionate all the time, I'll try to give an example. I think I've done this once before. So somebody comes in, hey, I'm going to be a little crass. My grandmother passed away. Okay, well, go take care of that. Then they come in the second time, hey, my grandmother passed away. Okay, go take care of that. And then they come in a third time, hey, my grandmother passed away. Is this step grandmother, adopted grandmother? Because you kind of only have 2, right? Well, blah, blah, blah. Okay, really? Are you sure? Is this a friend of the family? What is this? And so that's empathy, and that's also integrity, and that's also vigilance. And so then you say, how many grandparents do you have? Well, I'm just trying to get out of work. Okay, well, tell me the truth, right? You're not going to have that instantiation if somebody tells you the truth. And then he did a video on leadership philosophy. Again, thought it was going to be interesting, but I'll show a clip of it at the end. I mean, not a clip, but a little screen capture of it at the end. But the thing that I found interesting is I see a leadership philosophy as no matter what, here's the way I want this organization to be. Right? This is what I want from the organization, no matter what. No matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And so then you have to talk about the environment. You have to talk about competency, and you have to talk about the goal. Whatever the goal may be. So no matter what, we're going to approach the goals with this. I could actually, I don't know if I want to bore you and read my leadership philosophy, but I have one that I wrote in the 90s, and I've used it every time I've been in charge anywhere. Because it's never changed, because it's the same, right? And so I thought it was strange because what it read like was more of a personal mission statement, which is important. You should have one of those. You know, here's what I'm going to do. But it was more of a checklist for himself than a leadership philosophy. And again, I would have loved to have a discussion about this because, like I said, I see a philosophy as, you know, this, as I said somewhere else, the simplest possible list of ideas that you can apply infinitely. So then you need to cover all of this stuff. And then the last one is he did a really in-depth and really interesting and very educational, because I didn't know some of them. The top 10 leadership theories. I think it's an hour and 50 minutes, hour and 53 minutes. So, you know, we'll spend a minute talking about that too. So here we go. So integrity, talks about that. Empathy, okay. Humility, but then where's the vigilance? We didn't talk about that anywhere. Paying attention. And so the thing that I found a little interesting about his channel is he talks about all of these sort of individual things, but never applies them to a leadership context. Never applies them to a big leadership thing. It's very individual, which at the end of the day, leadership is individual, right? So what's missing? We'll see how this goes. So integrity. What's integrity? What's the value of integrity in an organization? Right? So you need to have integrity. You have to model it. And then you have to make sure that the organization, so it's almost like you're the integrity for the organization. So then you have to make sure that you're matching the goals. You got to make sure that you're keeping the company or the team in line with the company's values. You're the one that has to make sure that you're consistent in rewards and punishment. That's integrity. And yes, it's important to have it individually, but then you have to have it within the processes. Something I've talked about several times. It's almost as if the leader is the consciousness of, or the conscience, the logos of an organization. So as an individual, you should have integrity, empathy, blah, blah, blah. Fine. But then the leader is the one that makes sure that the organization as a body has that. So if you have good integrity, that's the foundation. It's the infrastructure. It's the wiring. It's the whole building has integrity. So if you're making sure that all that stuff stays, and you've got a strong organization. But if you have an environment where there's a bunch of lying and cheating and stealing and backstabbing, and everybody lies, and if you lie, you get promoted, then everything falls apart. So that's what's missing. So I thought, you know, here's a leadership trait, cool, but what value does it bring to an organization? And where should that be? You know, don't lie. Just don't. You know, you come to me and say, I goofed up and messed up and made a mistake. Okay, well, let's fix it. You lie, and then I find out that you lied. A completely different problem. Now I don't trust you anymore. You're dead, you know, the you're dead to me thing. All right. Empathy. Whoop. Did it went too many? Okay, sorry. So, empathy. It's not just personal. How do you apply empathy regards to the feelings of the organization? You come into work and you can feel. I've used this example before. You walk in and you got a weird feeling. Well, it's not right. And you just start talking and all of a sudden you go, oh my goodness, something bad is happening. That's empathy, right? What else is empathy? So you're making a plan and you're writing down several things that are going to happen in the future. And then empathy allows you to basically take each one of those organizations and make a copy of your organization in that scenario, and then run that scenario against each one of those parts of the organization to see what is going to go right or what's going to go wrong. It's just like you would do with yourself. Hey, I've got a plan. Here's 3 options for my plan. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, this will work. I'm going to try that one. So then you let the bad ideas go away. Same thing with the organization. But that's empathy, right? Being able to understand how some news is going to be received by a group, right? Good or bad news. Being able to sense when something is not going right with one of your team members, right? How do you do that? Well, you ask questions, you get to know them, you do all that sort of stuff. But then what's the difference between empathy? I'm sorry, we'll get down to compassion. And so the reason that empathy is important is because it's, I don't know, it's the intangible thing that you can't, and I don't know that there's a skill for it. So that's what I thought was interesting. You might be able to practice it individually, but if you're insincere, it's still not going to help, right? One of the examples that he gave was, ask some questions of your people. See how they're doing, ask how their kids are doing, take them out to coffee. That can still be fake, especially if you're doing it because it's required. I used to do stuff for my team. I would do some just random out of the blue. We'd have a cookout, or we'd do something, or I'd barbecue or whatever. And everybody always loved it because it was sincere. It wasn't, oh, hey, I'm doing this because I'm trying to build a good team. We're going to have a team building event. I love that. If you call it a team building event, it's not going to build teamwork. Okay, compassion. So compassion, I said this already, but he describes more of humility combined with empathy, right? Take care of other people. Make sure that other people are done. And we've said the example. Something's going on in somebody's life and they're your best worker. And you've got the most critical thing that has to happen, right? Their number one task and your best person that's trained for it, and their wife just passed away. Or some terrible accident happened and his children got, his or her children got killed too. What are you going to do, right? You are going to send that person home. You're going to let them go take care of their family and take care of that stuff. And then you're going to figure out how to do it, right? And it could be a disaster. But then what's that? Well, then you use integrity to call the boss up. Hey, this just happened. Number one person, I got to take the bullet on this one, but I had to send that person home because they weren't going to be effective. They weren't going to be able to do the job. Well, that's humility because you're looking out for them more than yourself and you understand what that feeling is. But he uses that sort of an example for compassion. So, yeah, anyway. All right, so we get down to the leadership philosophy. So, like I said, I'm going to show the leadership philosophy they did, and maybe if there's time, we'll probably have time, I'll read my philosophy. But what I thought was strange was it was a lot of individual stuff, but it wasn't anything about the environment. It didn't talk really anything about competency. And so it seems to me, and this is something I've never really thought about before, because I can't remember what I was taught when I wrote the one that I wrote. But it seems to me that you should lay out how you're going to attune competence and environmental hierarchies in pursuit of a goal. How are you going to do that? Or at least some semblance of that. Because that's your philosophy on how you're going to do that. Because you don't know what you're attuning. You don't know what the goals are going to be. The goal will change all the time. So, anyway, that's what I thought. And then, this is the fun part, right? So why is there a top 10 theories of leadership? What are the rest of them? And why is there so many? Because if we've been doing this for so many years, we should have a list. There should be one that works. Well, I think because once again, looking at those theories and watching the video, I have used all of those approaches at different times. I've said it in I don't even know how many videos, so the people that have watched all of the videos are going to get bored of me saying it. But there's times where I've used a bunch of different approaches in 10 minutes with the same person. Because there's sort of a running total of, and this is sort of your empathy, right? And your integrity and your vigilance, which vigilance is nowhere in here. So that's missing. But hey, this is the first time this person's made this mistake, and it was an honest mistake, and here's what's going on. Okay, here's the solution. Or this is the first time we've come up against this problem, and I think that it happened because I wasn't paying attention. Then 5 minutes later, oh my goodness, this is the 18th time that we as a group have messed this up. I have trained and coached everybody. Who's the person that purposefully goofed up this time? Or why weren't they paying attention? We need to go figure it out, right? And so it's always a sliding scale. And sometimes you're directive, sometimes you're participative, sometimes you're a dictator. Rarely, right? Sometimes you don't do anything. Sometimes no decision is the right thing. Sometimes you have to go get people energized. Sometimes you don't. And so if you go watch that leadership theory one, they're all correct. And they should be used all the time. The one that annoys me, and this is going to sound bad, but I've been thinking about it for months, because every time somebody says it, it bugs me. And that's the whole I'm a servant leader. No, you're not. Right? No, you're not. Yes, your job is to make sure that the team gets all the development, all the resources, all the coaching, all the guidance that they can possibly handle. So you are working for them. But you also have to punish them. You have to discipline them. You have to reward them. Servants don't give out rewards. Servants don't give out punishment. Servants don't give out guidance. Right? So I think that phrase isn't great. Because if you really were a servant leader, you would pay yourself the least in the organization. Right? Prove it. If you're a servant, prove it. Take the lowest pay, right? And there are times when you have to give people, you call it tough love. Sometimes you got to go tell somebody that, as good as they are and as hard as they're working, they're not going to cut it. Or you got to go and tell somebody, hey, I want to give you an award. I want to give you promotion. I want to do all that sort of stuff. You don't do that as a servant. So the word is wrong, right? A humble leader, sure. A leader of character, sure. Right? You've heard me say it before. Who's the least important person in the organization? Well, most likely the leader. Right? However, you have the biggest opportunity to goof things up if you get it wrong. And so that's why you shouldn't think of yourself as this amazing, wonderful, over-the-top, whatever thing. It's terrible, right? You should never think that of yourself under any circumstances. But you have the most responsibility because you're the one that's on the bottom, on the firing line if something terrible happens. Yeah, so servant leadership doesn't make sense to me, because if you do that, you say, well, I'm your servant. No, I'm here to help you be the best you can be. And it might be, like I said, with that person, you have to know everything going on, and they may make some mistake in a situation where it was completely obvious, or completely a mistake, or they willfully did it. Well, then you have to adjust what you're doing. Servants don't do that, right? So I don't like that. I don't like that phrase. I don't know what to call it. I mean, it's more like a guardian or protector or something. Maybe it's a guardian. So you're keeping an eye on them. You're watching out here, and then you're poking them if you need to, or rewarding them if you need to, right? I mean, that's the easy stuff. But still, a servant doesn't hand out rewards, right? A servant doesn't hand out promotions. A servant doesn't hand out accommodations. The person who's in authority, who's got the power to do that, is the one that hands those things out. Now, do you give as much power and as much responsibility, as much authority as you can away? Yes. But there are some things that you must do, and you must be willing to do those across the entire spectrum, right? You might have to completely light somebody up. I think I've said before, in 12, 14 years of leadership positions that I was in, I lost my mind 4 times yelling at people. And it was because they did stupid stuff. I mean, catastrophically stupid. And so I yelled at him. And I felt terrible afterwards. And then I went and apologized. And they were like, no, we deserve that. You absolutely were in the right to do that because we were not thinking. But I still didn't like doing it, but I had to be able to do it because otherwise somebody was going to get hurt. And then what? Well, I didn't want to cause a problem. But the most of the time it was, here's the goals, here's the job, here's the environment, go. And then you just watch. Okay, so, we've got time. So here's what he wrote down for his leadership philosophy. So my main job is to help each follower reach their highest potential. I don't like follower. I don't like follower because you're a servant, but you have followers. So you're leading from the lowest. I don't know. I don't like it. Anyway, I'll lead by example, set a high standard. Cool. I'll work with my team. I don't like followers. To help put their strengths into action, and will coach them in areas they need to develop. Good, right? Attuning, competence, hierarchies. Keep the team moving forward. I'll clearly communicate our goals and provide the team support to reach those goals. Okay, right? So, this was good. Don't copy. I'm not copying. I screen captured it with the copy in it. So I'm not stealing nothing. So, yeah, I guess I could read. I don't know how long this is going to go. I may cut this out. If this video suddenly cuts out and looks like it was clipped, it's because I changed my mind. So the thing that I want about a leadership philosophy is I want to be able to describe things that I want for the environment. Right? So this has got some Army words in it. I don't know if I want to bore you guys with it. I'll read it anyway. So this was my leadership philosophy that I wrote in 1997. And other than changing a couple of words to not be military related, I use the same one in the civilian sector, right? So the boss is responsible for all that the organization does or fails to do. I'm changing it on the fly. The boss cannot, however, do this alone. It is important that the middle managers and employees operate in accordance with standards and ensure that all of the tasks are accomplished to standard. In my experience, the middle managers and the employees determine the success or failure of an organization. Sexual harassment, discrimination, and fraud will not be tolerated. These not only violate laws, but unit or organization cohesion as well. Treat others the same way you treat a member of your family. Maintenance and accountability of equipment and good physical fitness are every soldier's responsibility. This is for the Army, like I said. Remember that we have to rely on each other and our equipment, so don't cut corners. Your life may depend on it. Here are 4 phrases that summarize my views on leadership. And this is cliche as anything, but I thought about it and it's just true. There is no I in team. The success of a team is dependent on the unique contribution and dedication of its individual members. There is no room for selfishness. Colonel Nett, a Medal of Honor winner, once told me, if you respect your superiors like your peers, treat your peers like your brothers and treat your superiors like your parents, treat your peers like your brothers and sisters, and care for your subordinates like your children, you'll be successful. Tell the truth at all times. Bad news does not get better with age. Your credibility and integrity are 2 things in your life that you directly control. If you lie, no one trusts you and the team suffers. Learn from your mistakes and move on. Don't compound the problem by lying. Take care of the little things. By this I mean do the right thing all the time, not just when someone's watching. Take care of people, take care of equipment, and strive to become an expert at your job. These fundamentals will directly lead to the success of the organization. Work hard and play hard. I don't like to waste time. If there's a job to be done, take care of it and then move to the next task. If there's training to be done, execute it to standard and then move on. Don't take away a person's free time unless it's absolutely necessary. In conclusion, it is my responsibility to ensure that the organization has the resources and training it needs to execute the mission. I accept this responsibility and will do my best to provide the leadership and guidance necessary to keep the organization on a course for success. So, what I find funny is that if you read that, I've got integrity, I've got humility, I've got empathy, I've got pay attention. Who knows? Anyway, now, his thing about a philosophy is something nice and short. I want people to be able to look at that and read that and have no questions where I'm coming from. Whereas with this, I'm not sure. I mean, he wants to take care of his people. I got it. He wants to develop his people. I got it. That's good. But there's a bunch more to being a leader. Anyway, I mean no disrespect. I would have loved to have had this discussion. Where's the next thing? Yeah, so this is his YouTube channel header. He's got some classes. He does a bunch of stuff about communication and not using filler words, which I think I said so 27 times in this speech, or in this video. So I don't know why I do that. It's so funny. I guess it's because I'm trying to tie everything together. I don't know. I watched that video twice, by the way. Thank you for making it. And obviously not a sponsored discussion, as with all the rest of them. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. And as always, I appreciate you paying attention. If you've got questions, comments, or would like to collaborate or I don't know, ask me questions. I had somebody suggest that I review a different leadership book. It's Leadership is a Philosophy, periods in between, @gmail.com. Have a great day.
Thank you.